Welcome into the Beat Sessions, your place for all things music. I'm your host, Mitchell Weary. It is Friday the 13th, and if you've got it, light it up. Let's lead things off for the week with this new record from Snoop Dogg entitled Missionary. I just cannot get enough of that album cover. It is absolutely ridiculous. This is Snoop Dogg's 20th studio album, big milestone, amongst many other things to note about this project, and his follow-up to 2022's BODR. It's an acronym that stands for Back on Death Row 2022. That one weekend in particular, big weekend for Snoop Dogg back in that year. He buys Death Row Records back, puts out his first record in almost 3 decades on the label, and then performs at that Super Bowl halftime show. Mary J. Blige did the same thing. She puts out Good Morning Gorgeous that weekend as well. Has a big weekend herself and received a number of Grammy nods for that album. And then Kendrick Lamar putting out Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers a few months after that performance. It's been interesting these last few months watching this whole crew kind of conspire to take over the back end of 2024. Mary J. Blige putting out Gratitude recently, and Kendrick doing his thing with GNX, the king of the West Coast, as everybody is declaring him these days. I kind of tend to agree, but Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre doing their thing. And I would say that before Kendrick could run, Snoop walked. And that's basically where we're at. And I love that he's back with Dre. This is a project that is over 3 decades in the making. If you're a hip hop fan, if you're a fan of Doggy Style or Snoop in general, this is long overdue. Obviously, those guys have collaborated a number of times on a number of different projects over the year, but no one takes care of Snoop in the lab better than Dre. And so it's really cool to see him bringing out that old school flair in Snoop and doing it in a contemporary way for a newer audience. He talks about that. He talks about Snoop's career, especially in the last 10 years with everything that he's done. I mean, he's everywhere, hosting the Olympics over the summer, which I thought was pretty cool. You know, marketing campaigns, Corona. He's got his own brand, Gin and Juice. He's actually going to be in Tucson for the Arizona Bowl. He's a big sports fan. So it's interesting. Of all the bowl games that he chose to be a part of, I'm stoked that he chose that one. And Snoop, if you see this, man, I'm going to reach out to you actually. If you're in Tucson, I'd love to sit down and chat about the record on the channel. Figure why not ask? The least that you can say is no. But it's just a privilege for all of us to get this iteration of Snoop, to see him return to his roots, that old school G-Funk West Coast gangster style. And this is a record that what I love about it is that perspective. He's 53 now, obviously grown up, lots of experience. And he talks about that. He talks about how he's not 19 years old anymore and he doesn't want to write in that capacity. And so it's important, as Dre notes, to keep it to the streets, but there's also this level of wisdom, this level of perspective, this level of maturity that goes on in the record. And I think that's just phenomenal. Aside from, you know, the technical elements that Dre is so good at, I guess, helping Snoop dial in at, you know, his style, it's so silky smooth. He's got this just laid back, casual flair that very few people are able to handle in this industry. There's just, honestly, I don't know if there's anybody cooler than Snoop, anybody more laid back and chill than Snoop Dogg. But it's the rhyme schemes too, the syncopation, the complex word structures that he's putting together, the alliteration, all of these things that he does, and his use of space too. That's one of my favorite things about the guy. He, I talk about The Edge a lot. He's my number one go-to example as far as musicians that utilize space. Sometimes what you don't do means more than what you do. And I think Snoop is one of those guys that's very well aware of using space and using rhythms and playing around with them, just being so masterful. And so this is an album that captures that. I feel like the rhymes on this record, what he's throwing down from a lyrical standpoint, and then, you know, just from a pure standpoint of spitting bars, everything is top notch, really at the height of his game on this record, which makes it exciting. And the other thing too is the homage to not just West Coast hip hop, but to music in general. There are so many cool collaborations on this project, giving a really solid nod to classic rock and world music as well. I love all the different samples that are at work on this record. And I mean, some of the names that I saw on this thing, I was absolutely surprised to see these guys working with. I'll just say the likes of Sting, for example. That's the one that got me the most. But like hearing him show up on this record and do his thing is just an amazing surprise and shock amongst many other cool things about this project. I really love teaming up with Khan and Smitty on a number of these songs from a writing standpoint, working with Dre as well from the writing standpoint. It's cool to see those guys not just work with Snoop in collaboration, but also do their thing on a number of tracks as well. So I love him working with those two guys. It's that blending of the new and the old, and I think that's really important. It's looking at a guy like Kendrick and looking at what he's been able to accomplish based on the work of guys like Dre, guys like Snoop over the years. It's really cool to see all of this come full circle. That's kind of what this feels like. It's after 30 years, and after everything that Snoop has gone through, after everything Dre has gone through, here they are, back on the same path, doing their thing for all of us. And just what a treat. What a way to kick off the weekend. And I hope you all enjoy celebrating and listening to this thing. It kicks off with Foreplay featuring BJ the Chicago Kid. Got a groovy roll with minimal bass, drum. You got these twinkly synths, and I really like the brighter effects. Gives this big R&B meets kind of like pop feel. There's a trap beat that hits towards the end of the song. I really like the introduction of that, the way that it picks up. And that's what I'll say too. This is before we get too deep into it, this is an album with 16 tracks. It's got a pretty lean runtime at 46 minutes though. I know hip hop projects in general tend to go a little longer than that, but I really love how tight this thing is. I mean, they're not a moment of wasted space. It really is an intense, just engrossing experience. And these guys have done a phenomenal job of making sure that every track pulls you in, not just with all the stuff that I talked about, but there's also moments where these tracks, a lot of them will just take a hard right-hand turn and go into completely different territory than where they started. And I think it's really cool the way that this music is playing off all of that as well. Getting into your second song, Shangri-La, it's got this loose build with this classic pop feel, bossa nova element as well. It's a sample from Swahili Land from Ahmad Jamal. So I really just love that world element and what Snoop and Dre are doing with that. It's light and weightless, just this dope beat that keeps this. The song has this loose avant-garde feel, based on the sample and what they're trying to do with it. And I think I think leading this record off, doing something a little different, a little progressive, but keeping it grounded in that West Coast is an amazing move. It really is a dope signal as far as to, yes, we're going back into that territory, but we're not just going to, deliver you some simple run of the mill stuff. Like, we're actually going to be inventive. We're going to take that style that we cultivated and build on it and make it even better, make it more expansive. And that's what I really felt with that song. Out of the Blue is your third track. Really just, I love the thick bass drum and tribal vocals that, and this song goes back and forth between that element. And then there's this driving component with this cowbell driven funk element to it, but sampling MIA and Paper Airplanes, which samples The Clash's Straight to Hell. So it's I love just that whole mix of music right there, going to work with that. It's going to lead into your fourth track, Hard Knocks, which is it's got this big organ and thick bass to open, simple beat with minimal production, but spooky elements that enter. And I love the bass on this track. And here we are sampling Pink Floyd's Another Brick in the Wall Part 2. And it just, total surprise. I mean, I love that coming at you, especially as a hip hop fan, but as someone who, has always been a classic rock person at their core. It wasn't until later that I got into hip hop. So I love this blending of sounds. And, if you're familiar, I mean, Biggie Hypnotize sampling Young Lust from Pink Floyd. I mean, Pink Floyd is a rock and roll band that has been a driving force in hip hop for, I think, a lot longer than people recognize or even know. So I love Hard Knocks. I love what they're doing on that track. Gorgeous is your fifth song. Big rollicking piano. It's paired with this big beat, bright 90s style synths with an R&B vocal. Snoop spits the hook. And features Janae Akio, I love her vocal element, what she's bringing as far as the hook on that song. It's definitely a highlight of that track for me. Your sixth track, Last Dance with Mary Jane, Reppin' Petty. We've got to. It's another big surprise, and I really love how well done this track is. There's a video of Petty talking about that, and he's just like, man, if Dre ever samples that song, it's going to be a big hit. And I think a lot of people are going to be blowing this song up this weekend. It's a pretty cool track. Arpeggiated acoustic sample. Like, I really dig the guitar riff. It's not the exact guitar riff. And that's my favorite thing about it, I think, is that melodically you can hear Mary Jane's Last Dance, but they're still doing something a little different. The harmonica with the guitar is pretty sweet, great element there, and just spitting bars. Really a very fun song. Thank You is your seventh track. You got another sample here from Sly and the Family Stone, and just a banger of a beat. I love the guitar that floats along in the background, again, playing with a riff that is similar to what's going on in the original, but doing something a little different. You get these, it's like done in a trippy fashion. It's upbeat and minimal though, just in that signature Dre style. Really a big fan of that song as well. Pressure, I love this song. Thick double bass, simple loose Western percussion as well. Just a lot of textures going on there with the world elements, world percussive elements as well. You get these icy synths that play in, and k.a.a.n is just so sweet on this song. I am just a big fan of his presence on that track. Another Part of Me featuring Sting is your ninth track, sampling Message in a Bottle. Sting is going to lead off with the noise of a cheering crowd. The song itself has this vibe of, like, it made me think of a lot of the songs off of Make Yourself from Incubus there in the late 90s. But I mean, Sting going to work on this track, it is just so cool that they had a chance to team up with the likes of him. And I know that, reading some of these reviews and interviews with them, they were really excited about having that opportunity. And I think it's just cool as hell. Another, we just talked about Another Part of Me, Skyscrapers is your 10th track. You got this big horn element over mid-tempo rhythm, and there's some congas, some other world elements there, and as far as the percussion, and just a lot of mean bars over bossa nova vibes. It's a fun presence in this record. Definitely a lot of Latin flair, a little bit of flamenco, the bossa nova. Really just enjoying that element of this record as well. Fire is your 11th track. It's got this reggae feel, thick walking bass, and upbeat rhythm. Great open from Coco. That track features Coca Sari, or Sare, I believe. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. I probably should have be a little better about that. But I mean, Fire is a fire track. I dig the feel of that song, and it leads into your 12th track, Guns and Smoke. Guns and Smoke features 50 Cent and Eminem, classic collaboration. I love that the two of them are able to show up and work on this project. That song has this galloping electro beat. It's a little lackadaisical, but I mean, in just typical, just traditional classic Snoop style. It's got this smooth, laid back feel. The textures that float in and out are interesting. It's like a little bit of like sci-fi meets daytime television vibe as far as that element. Sticky Situation is your 13th track. It's the second time that Sticky is in a dope song this year on a record, but featuring k.a.a.n and Coco Sare again. Really got this fuzzy beat and this kind of like barroom saloon style piano that it really gives this song a unique feel. Another track that takes a big turn as far as, those 180s that I was talking about. A lot of these tracks, will really start off in one place and then venture into totally different territory. And I love that. Got this grinding electro rock feel that is going to close that thing out. Now or Never is your 14th track. It's featuring Dr. Dre and BJ the Chicago Kid once again. Percussion driven with this like sparse, adventurous bass. I really enjoyed the bass element on this track. Psychedelic organs, and then these gospel harmonies that really provide an interesting flair to the track. I enjoyed those a lot. Gangsta Posse, or Gangster Pose, excuse me. Learn how to pronounce, learn how to read there. Featuring Dem Joints, Stallone, Fat Money. Your penultimate track is got these droning synths, really unique percussion, these ethereal harmonies that are at work. Takes a wild turn as well. This is one that it goes into this like bass-driven jazz form that I really enjoyed a lot. It's a phenomenal penultimate track, and it leads into your final song, The Negotiator. Just a great lyrical build, funky big band feel that I got in a little bit of this track. But it is a banger of a closer, as it should be. This record is just fire from start to finish. There is no filler. Snoop just mean on the mic, doing what he does best. And to Dre's point, making an album, creating a project that, there's going to be a whole generation of kids that really get to actually not just experience what Snoop Dogg is like, but what actual G-Funk West Coast rap is like at its heart. I feel like hip hop, there are great artists out there that are doing their thing. Guys like Kendrick, guys like Tyler, the Creator, guys like J. Cole. But I think for the most part, there's a lot of like commercial trash that you have to shift through to find the good stuff. And I guess that's the kind of the case with a lot of genres. But it's just so cool to see Snoop and Dre showcase, what really is at the heart of all of that stuff that we listen to these days, as far as the hip hop influence, and these guys being, the Godfathers, the Doggfathers of all of that. Really, really pumped about this record. Going to give it a vinyl, please. Going to give it it's definitely an 8.2 out of 10. I think that there's this is a record that as time passes and as people reflect on Snoop's career, the anticipation for this collaboration, these guys finally getting back to work after 30 plus years of collaborating and doing the thing, but not actually a full-length project together. This is really impressive, and I hope you enjoy it. Hope you find this review helpful. Please like this video, share it, subscribe to the channel, do all the things to help me blow this project up in 2024 and leading into 2025. Tune in to Classic Wax on Tuesday nights at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And also check out our subscription and check out the Daily Deep Cut. I'm going to start doing that Monday through Friday at 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hope you enjoy all that stuff, and everything else is coming at you from the Beat Sessions in 2025. Take care, and we'll see you next time.